Time to wrangle. We got Justin Smith in the sporting capital of the universe, getting ready for grand final weekend. Good to speak to you again, Justin. And on the desk with me in the Sunshine Fun, good food, good times capital of the world in Sydney, we got Liz Storer from the Late Debate. I want to start on this outbreak of common sense coast to coast now. We talked on the program last night about how Unley Council in Adelaide, Liz, has tried shifting all their Australia Day ceremonies to the 25th. Now they surveyed their locals. They're moving back to January the 26th. The same thing has happened in Rockingham in Western Australia. They surveyed their constituents and guess what? Australians like Australia Day on the 26th.
But what is with this retrospective actually consulting the people who elected you to represent them? So, look, credit where it's due, because it is rather embarrassing for these councils to do a double take, and good on them for setting the record straight. But it just goes to show how many of these councils, because there's over 40 in Victoria alone, who've just arbitrarily made this move, no consultation whatsoever with their constituents. And I would go so far as to say the vast majority of Australians want. We know that from the poll.
Yeah, I think you did right.
This was something that was polled very widely, especially when The Voice was in the news every other day. People want their national day to remain the same.
Popularity is no guarantee of quality.
But
But Justin, let me just go to Justin on that point.
Because he created this in giving the power to the local council.
Labor changed the rules and therefore we saw the shift. But Justin, this is the point that Liz makes, right? You got elected representatives. They jumped initially on these councils to go with what they thought was the zeitgeist, what was noisy in the media or social media or whatever. Then after they do it, they talk to their constituents and, oh, guess what? We were wrong. Constituents actually want the day remaining where it is.
I've got to tell you, I've got absolutely no respect for these people. They've got no ticker at all. They made the call because they thought it was the right thing to do. They thought that they'd been elected and that they were going to make the call on it.
Representing your constituents is the right thing to do.
I also think that it's the right thing to do. And then they turn around and they start to go, oh, hang on a sec, just... Look, this embarrasses me. It embarrasses me that we were kind of on the same side at one point about changing the date. I want nothing to do with these people at all. No ticker. If you really feel strongly about it and you have been elected, go with it. Well, I think it was Oscar Wilde who said everything popular is wrong. So just because more people want it doesn't mean it is the right thing to do.
But it also means if you have to outsource every decision to your constituents, you are weak and spineless. You're not a representative at all. You're just a delegate, and it's nuts.
The three of us can agree on that.
No, but it actually takes more ticker to then have the gumption. Because, like I say, it's embarrassing for these councils to say, we made this call,
because they're doing what you want, Liz. Now they've got ticker.
No, not at all. Not at all. Because if they surveyed their
what it takes to be a good leader in Australia. Do what Liz thinks.
If they surveyed their constituents
should be an orphan there.
Majority of them wanted the date moved and cancelled the celebrations. That's a council doing its job. Well, so it's not which way they're going. It's the fact that, yes, thank you very much. You finally actually asked the people you're elected to represent what they want, and you're doing their bidding. That's your job.
Let's lift the standards here.
Every decision. Let's do it for every decision.
No politician ever make a decision. Just do a census of your people. It's ridiculous. Now let's go for some really respectful and dignified political leadership, the sort of political leadership that takes it up to another level at the national stage, and that is what we get from our current Prime Minister, who of course promised to do nothing when it came to changing negative gearing or capital gains taxes. And here's what he had to say today when it was put to him that perhaps his government is considering changes.
I've seen those reports, and what we do is we value the public service. So from time to time, I'm sure the public service are looking at policy ideas.
Will you rule out changes to negative gearing and property taxes this term or next?
Well, what we're doing is doing the legislation that we have before the Senate. So I talk about what we're doing, not what we're not doing, and what we're doing is trying to get through that legislation.
Oh, boy, lots of words, not much meaning there, Justin. It sounds like they're looking at a broken promise.
God, he really struggles, doesn't he? He really struggles in those in those situations. Look, I've got to say, I don't really care what he puts forward, as long as when he puts it forward, he gives us all the detail about it, gives us plenty of time to be able to thrash it out, and then doesn't make any changes until he takes it to the people. I mean, I think, you know, whatever he's got coming up. But my concern would be, if I was in the Labor camp, if I was working around Anthony Albanese, when you do make a decision, is he able to actually go out there and sell the vision of this thing? That would probably be the bigger problem for the party at the moment.
But I think you're right. If you're going to make those changes to negative gearing, at least take them to an election so people get to vote on them. I don't think they'll go too well. No. I'll show another clip of Albo today before I get Liz's thoughts. This is Albo on cost of living issues.
Well, one of the things that we are going to do, and you will have seen on Monday when it comes to cost of living as well, is take on businesses when they're not doing the right thing by consumers. When you have a packet of Oreos lifted up in prices and by triple the amount in which they're then decreased, and a sign put on them saying that it's a special, then that is not doing the right thing by consumers.
Yeah, now this is fascinating because here he is trying to take credit for the ACCC taking on the supermarket giants. As I showed earlier in the program, Johannes Leek has nailed this brilliantly because he's got Albo on the left of screen here in this cartoon saying, don't fall for illusory discounts, your Oreos at the supermarket giants. But on the right, he's saying power bills down, inflation down, down, down. He wants people to fall for his illusory electricity prices scam, Liz.
Yes, this is just absolutely brilliant by Johannes. He always nails it, absolutely. Thank you, Johannes. But this is yet another lie, like you say, complete lie. The people were told one thing and now we find out, just like what happened with the stage 3 tax cuts. Yep. They said nothing was going to happen. Then Capital Brief found out that Chalmers had asked the relevant department, actually, if you can just do me up a list of options, what it might look like if we did choose to do this, and the whistle was blown on them for the lies that they are. It's just Groundhog Day with this government.
It is indeed. Now, talking about Groundhog Day, there was one of those at New York at the United Nations headquarters over the past 24 hours when Joe Biden made his final speech to the General Assembly. Have a look at him praising himself, I think.
This summer, I faced a decision whether to seek a second term as president. It was a difficult decision. Being president has been the honor of my life. There's so much more I want to get done. As much as I love the job, I love my country more.
Oh, give me a break, Justin. He did it for the country. He wants to get more done. Like, what's he done so far, apart from...
What's left to destroy?
Allow Russia to take Ukraine and everybody to declare war on Israel.
Look, I don't think Joe needed to go around patting himself on the back, but I've got to say that I really think the more that time goes on, and I'm no big fan of Joe Biden, I think that what he actually did was commendable, because I think very, very few people... I know he was pushed into it. There's no doubt about it. And he had very few choices. But could you ever imagine the orange one ever turning around and saying, hey, listen, I'm getting too old for this job. I can't do it anymore. He would cling on to power, and we've already seen him do that in a very atrocious fashion. Cling on to power in any way he could. I think Biden actually... I think this one, he does deserve the pat on the back.
Well, especially when a week later he'd forgotten he'd done it and someone had to remind him. Let's go to another bloke who's a lot younger and sharper, but he's getting himself into a lot of strife very quickly as the Prime Minister of the UK. That's Labor's Keir Starmer. And what about this shocking gaffe?
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
The return of the sausages. I mean, Liz, look, let me at least say I'm pleased that he's putting the return of the hostages front and centre. But what a slip of the tongue. What a shocker. What's going through his head?
He appears to be reading from an auto cue.
Yeah.
So the words sausages and hostages aren't remotely spelt the same, even if they sound slightly
this
similar.
Is a long
it goes to show you politicians are human, but also whereabouts in your brain wouldn't you be thinking nowhere in this speech is there a reference to sausages? Especially not now when I'm making I'm the Prime Minister Minister of the UK
Yeah.
and I'm calling
This is
for a
outrageous.
ceasefire and I'm calling
It's
for
a
the
bad-
return of the hostages is a very, very strange slip-up.
It's a bad slip-up. He's got some more serious fundamental problems going on there too that we'll talk about on the program tomorrow night. But that is all the time we've got for Wrangling tonight. Thanks so much, Justin Smith and Liz.